Okay.
Has been
This
sent.
meeting is being recorded.
Okay.
All
I
right.
think Zoom must have changed that recently because the way it used to work is I could click on a little thing on my student's name that would say allow to make recording, and then you could hit record and it would record onto your computer. But now I think what happens is I, as the host, start a recording and it records it to the cloud, and then I can send you the link to that afterward. Because that
Oh,
happened.
okay.
That happened with my student yesterday. All of a sudden I got this link to a cloud. I was like, huh? So I just sent it.
What is this?
Yeah. I guess. I
That's
mean, I
hilarious.
guess
All right.
that way. That's funny because I was just telling that student yesterday. I had a student a while back that used to record all of the lessons, and we would do these really long lessons, and his computer was always getting full, and like it would overheat and stuff and stop working. It was kind of
Oh man.
ridiculous. So maybe that's for the
Yeah.
better that they're going to the cloud.
Yeah. It's because you're not taking up all the space. You only download what you need.
Right. All right. But yeah, if you do want to upload, some of the lesson,
Skip.
if you upload the whole thing, aside from I mean, maybe it's no big deal at all, but it's probably would be like nobody would watch it if it was that long.
Yeah, no, but maybe I take a snippet and I'll send it to you as unlisted. And if you say, hey, yeah, you can put that up, then I'll put it up. I won't put anything up without your permission.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. That's a great idea actually. I'd never thought about that.
Yeah.
All right. So, alone together. Interestingly enough, my student yesterday was also working on Alone Together, and it made me. We were talking about the chord of the tune where you got the B minor 7, E7.
2 5 to 8.
Yeah, and I had a vague memory of being told a long time ago by somebody that like, oh, that's not the original chord change in the song. So I found what I think is the very original recording of the song, and sure enough, it's a different change there. Not that not playing everybody plays B minor 7 E7 there, so that's I think what everybody should keep doing. But it's good. I think it's good to know where it comes from originally. So oh, and incidentally, the other kind of interesting thing about hearing that recording was, aside from that one change, pretty much all the other harmony is about the same as most people play it now. So that's always kind of interesting when that happens, because a
Yeah.
lot of the time when you hear these old original recordings of standards, the harmony will be a lot different and maybe a lot more simple. But a lot of the stuff is very similar. There was a couple of spots where maybe like instead of they would do like an inversion of the two chord instead of E in the bass, B flat in the bass, or whatever. But other than that, it was pretty similar. But anyway, so this one spot, and now here instead of it goes,
And that's actually really nice.
yeah,
That a diminished or is
it's a
that a sixth?
diminished. It's a diminished. So it's like A flat diminished with the
A flat
E in the
diminished.
melody. Yeah. Yeah, I'm playing like a drop three voicing, so I've got I'm skipping the A string, like that voicing,
Okay.
and then the melody is an E. So yeah,
Okay.
if you ever
Um,
have you ever played Corcovado?
maybe a really long time ago. Yeah, a long time ago, but I don't really
That's a
remember.
similar idea where you've got a diminished chord with this note in the melody.
That drop three diminished chord is just like the shell voicing diminished, right?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, all of the shell voicings with the root on the sixth string are basically just drop three
Drop
voicings
threes with
minus.
missing one note.
Yeah, exactly.
So the whole thing is now don't go here, here,
Hmm.
and then
And
where
then
are you going?
just the regular
Oh, the
two
two
five.
five to F.
Yeah, right. I mean, your
Or
voice leading. If you start here, maybe stick to the the on the low E string. Yeah. Mm. The
Okay.
other thing that was interesting on that old recording is they go like they keep G in the bass. It goes from G minor to C7, but keeps the G in the bass and then goes to F. Kind of
Because
interesting.
that essentially turns into a G minor six, right?
Basically, yeah. Especially if you add the D in there.
And that was off of the so G minor and then F.
And then F, right?
Okay, so then from the 2 5, so instead of F, you're going
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah. And there's a couple different ways of looking at this. You could say, well, okay, the if we started with this, how does that relate to this A flat diminished? If I think of an E7 chord, E7, E, G sharp, B, D, and it's very common to maybe put a flat 9 on there. This chord right here is basically the same thing as E7 flat 9, but with no root, because the notes are, if I think of it as G sharp instead of A flat, then I've got F, which is like a flat 9 of E, B, which is the fifth, and D, which is the flat 7. So it's just like, you know, and even that E melody note, oh, that's just the root of an E7 chord. Now, that still, this is something that always sort of bothered me about this song before, years ago when I used to play it, is that where does this B minor 7 E7 come from? It just comes
Yeah,
out of
it's just a
nowhere.
random 2 5 and A.
Yeah, and then it doesn't resolve. Like it just goes completely back to where we were. Um, and actually, interestingly, my student yesterday, who you might know, actually, Federico Bonacasa, he
Yes,
teaches at
he's
FIU.
from before me, right?
No, well, he is a classical guitarist and teaches at FIU. He teaches theory and a bunch of stuff, but he's also interested in jazz guitar. He years ago he took some lessons from me, and he just decided that he wanted to take some more lessons and get a little bit deeper into it. But he obviously a very experienced musician, and what he said was, well, you could think of the E7 as a 5 chord of A minor, which is very similar to F major. It's like that diatonic substitution in thirds thing, and that it's doesn't go directly there, but this is sort of filling in for A minor. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way of looking at it.
I see.
Now, the other thing that occurs to me though with this, and this happens in a lot of these old standards, and maybe you and I have talked about this before, is what I usually call a tonic diminished sound. And what I mean by that is, if I think of it as A flat diminished, you know that diminished chords are symmetrical, right? And so A flat diminished, B diminished, D diminished, and F diminished are all the same chord.
Yeah, we had a conversation about this when I was at Carrot Express when I called you because I was like, which diminished?
Oh, right, right.
Remember you wrote me like a huge thing, and I was like, okay, that helps kind of clear it up. You're like it. You really made it a point where you really brought it to my head was you were saying like the dominant chord is acting as 5 sometimes, right?
Hmm.
It's like that half step resolution or even diminished 1 to 1. And I was like, that's why they pay you the big bucks. Because that helped it kind of make sense to me a little bit more. Like stop thinking of it as diminished, but think of it, what is it doing versus
Yeah,
like it as a diminished chord. Like it doesn't matter what's at the bottom. What it matters is what is it functioning as, and that tells you what the chord is. And that helped a
yeah,
lot. I'm not great at it, but at least I have some reference.
great. So yeah, that's basically what's going on. Well, another way of looking at what's going on here is this is basically an F diminished chord, and it's not directly resolving to F, but eventually resolving to
Yeah,
F.
it gets there. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've seen tunes that go like,
Yeah, like 1 6 2 5, like rhythm changes.
yeah. Although in this case I'm playing
Yeah, it's
it's
yeah,
right.
diminished instead.
There's a couple tunes I can think of off the top of my head that do this specific thing. Da 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 da. It's witchcraft. You know that song?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So that has that in it. That tonic diminished. This sort of a deceptive resolution. The other place you see that sometimes is going the other direction. You might see this, and that's
Mm.
just sort of a treading water thing. Like if you have two bars of F major and you want to make it more interesting, you could make it F major, G minor, A flat diminished, A minor. And here, once again, the A flat diminished is really just an F diminished, and the A minor is really just an F major.
You're almost like if you're going up like a chord scale.
Yeah, exactly. Total. As a matter of fact, the only one that breaks out of the diatonic is this one right here. And
Yeah.
again, it's just temporary going out of the key, dissonance, tonic diminished, back to regular tonic. Okay, but anyway, so all this stuff is kind of academic anyway. I mean, this doesn't necessarily help you play alone together better to know all this, but in my mind, it at least helps me feel more grounded in the tune. Like, okay, I get the big picture of what's going on, and alone
It
together
gives
a
you the
little
why.
bit better. Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
gives you the why.
exactly.
It's important. Yeah, you need to know the why. If not, then what are you doing?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I have run into people before that don't care about the why. There's no, no, I don't care. Just show me a lick, and I want to, something that'll sound cool. And that's great if that's the way you operate. But yeah, I've never been that way. When I was in elementary school, my school did not have a dedicated math teacher, and so the homeroom teacher would have to teach math, and every year it was somebody who didn't really know anything about math, and they would just like read us the stuff out of the book, and I would always raise my hand like, well, why does that work? And just shut up and don't ask questions and memorize the formula. And as a result, I was horrible at math, and I have been my whole life because I couldn't. No one would explain to me why it
Why
worked.
is it doing what it's doing? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
me and you are the same in that. Me and you are the same in that. Like if I'm figuring something out, I need to know why it does what it does.
yeah, it's
I
almost
think
like
that's
I
why I
have
look at
this.
exercise physiology so much.
Mm,
Like, like, why does exercise make you happy?
mm,
Right? Like everybody tells you exercise makes you happy. The long story short, lactate crosses the blood-brain barrier into the synapses, and in the synapses, there's a thing in the brain called malinate that doesn't allow lactate to bind to something called lactate dehydrogenase. And because lactate free circulates in the brain, it will eventually bind with the G protein, and it turns into dopamine, which
uh,
makes you. That's why it happens.
cool. Yeah, I never thought about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's why exercise makes you happy.
That makes sense. All right. So anyway, um, a couple of the thoughts that I had based on the videos were, you asked about comping, and
Yes.
you got the basic voicings down, no problem, and obviously your concept of comping is totally fine. Like you know how to comp and make it feel good and play rhythms and use voice leading that works. So all that stuff is cool. You got a very strong base to work off of. BASE, not BASS.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, so it's just a matter of maybe some suggestions to build on that to add some extra colors and different textures. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like how can I voice lead maybe better, even substitutions or changes. Like I gave you like that really poor example of me trying to do the 6 on 5 stuff, like playing a because I know that it goes to F, and I know that there's a tight resolution between C and F. There's
Uh-huh.
only really one note different. I thought I could use that diminished tonic kind of resolution, right? And then to fill the 2 5. So instead of just playing the something to spice up the 2 5 part.
Right. So let me see if I understand this right. So you're thinking instead of just G minor 7 C7 F, you're making it like D minor 7 G7 G minor 7 C7 F. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually a pretty common thing to do. Maybe even a little bit more common or more basic version of that would be taking your G minor chord and changing it to G7. And then you still have the same number of chords, but the two chords a little crunchier.
Oh, so you get 5/5.
Exactly. Right.
So it'd be something like
Right. Yeah.
oh, I
And
like
and
that.
a common thing to do there would be to alter that G7 chord because especially like a sharp 9 because the sharp 9 is kind of like the minor third anyway, right?
So take this.
Yeah. Or even put a 13 on the C7 chord and then you can get that half step movement.
The 13 is C, D, E, and E at the top.
No, a
What is
G,
it?
sorry, an A
G.
at the top.
So C7.
There you go. So
Okay, so
basically you're go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh,
I
I
was
think
going to say
it's
you're yeah.
right. There's my G7
Right.
or F major, whatever.
Yeah.
So the right. And then you can go to like F9.
Mhm. Yeah, and what you're doing there is a great idea, which is you're thinking of the top voice as sort of almost a melody. I've noticed that's probably something that I didn't talk about with students enough back when you were taking lessons because it's something that I didn't really start to think about consciously until recently. That when I'm comping, I'm almost always thinking of the top voice as a melody on top of the chords, even though, I'm in the background behind the main melody. There, it's still a melody unto itself. Just like if I was writing for a big band and the horn section, the lead player would have the melody of the background part.
Well,
So
when I
it's
started taking lessons with you, I'd only been playing guitar a year
mhm.
back in Miami-Dade, so I don't think it was like appropriate. But you did because there was one day where I said that I've always had a bad ear. My ear is significantly better than it was 20 years ago. But I remember one day I was like, oh, I can kind of, it was when I got back from Connecticut for the Litchfield Jazz
Right,
Festival.
right.
And I was like, oh man, I started to hear, and I was trying to describe like the upper structure. And you were like, yes. And then you gave me like a little breakdown of how some of that stuff moves. And I think you used this example of like a Black Orpheus. Uh, this
Mm.
you use this melody line. You were like, haven't you ever heard? And then you're like, and then you were telling me how you can. I got that from you because you were like, yeah, this line, and then that's how we had that conversation. But yeah, it did take a bit for me to even be able to conceptualize any of that, just because I didn't have enough time under the instrument. But let me get this one more time. Oh, I gotta move that ring finger. That's the problem. I'm like, why does it sound weird when I do it? Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah. But that's a great thing to be aware of is your top voice acting as a melody. And the fact that you have that stepwise movement can be really nice. It can also you can go the other direction and keep the top voice the same through a series of chords, like so there I use D as the top note for all the chords. A minor with the 11th, D7 with the root, G minor 7 with the 5th, C7 with the ninth, and then F major with the 13th. So that was I just kept a D on top of every chord.
D.
I was using my high E string there. I was
Oh yeah, because you have more. Okay. What voice tone were you using for the F?
which is sort of it's a drop three voicing. That one on the top five strings. So the notes are F, E, A, C.
FEAC.
Yeah. That was my starting point was the C on top, and then I replaced the C with the D to get the yeah.
Okay. So you went draw threes there, the majority of it.
Yeah, I did actually. You're right. Yeah, because this is well, this I guess this is more like a shell voicing, or it could you could think of it as a drop three with where I replace the root the fifth with an 11th, and then a drop three D7, which I added the D on top. This is a shell voicing of G minor 7 with the ninth and the fifth on top, and then a drop three C7 with the 13th and a ninth, and then a drop three. So yeah, I guess a lot of them are. So when you add an extra note to a chord too, it becomes nebulous as to like
Yeah, it is.
is this chord a drop three voicing like this with an added note on top, or is it a drop two voicing with the root added on the bottom? It's six of one, half dozen of the other. It's kind of hard to say which one it is, and in the end, it doesn't really matter anyway. It's only useful to use those terms in this situation so that we know what each other are talking about quickly. But
Yeah.
it's really just notes and sounds, when it comes
When
down.
you're on the bandstand, yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
obviously, the listeners aren't going to know whether you're playing drop two, drop three.
Unless it's Gary Campbell. I mean, I fucking played an F on a fucking. I played an F sharp on a G7 chord, and he walked up to me afterwards, and he's like, "Why are you playing an F sharp there?" I'm like, "You heard that? That
Right.
was a mistake."
Right. Sandy used to tell me stories about Mike Gerber because he taught with him at the Wolfson campus, and he said, they would listen to an entire student's jury like playing, a song that was like 5 minutes long, and then at the end, Mike Gerber would say, on the third chorus, the third eighth note of bar 36, why did you choose to play that E flat?
It's like, I don't know, man.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast, let alone that.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but that guy's superhuman. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
have you ever heard
The,
him play?
the pianist. I got to
Yeah.
play with him at a jam at the Fish House.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I embarrassed myself over Beautiful Love with him playing piano. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, unfortunately, Mike Gerber also is almost deaf, so he has a really hard time playing with other people because he a lot of the time can't hear what anybody
Yeah,
else is
it's
doing.
washed down. Yeah.
Yeah. So it might not have totally been your fault.
Yeah.
I heard him play with Mike Stern, and there were some real clashes going on, both rhythmically and melodically, because I think Mike just couldn't hear.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Kind of
probably
deaf.
what's happening.
It's usually better to just hear him play by himself, because
Yeah,
then
he's
it's just
incredible.
amazing.
He did a couple of workshops at Miami-Dade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I kind of remember him doing a workshop. I think it was on a day I wasn't there, but I remember that he was coming in. Okay, so anyway, the one thing that I would say though is I don't think you need to be quite so concerned with adding chords or adding harmonies. It works to do that, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think there's some other things that you can do that are not quite as involved that can add extra colors and dimensions to your comping without worrying about like reharmonizing things, and adding to the harmonies that are already there. So I had a couple of suggestions with that. Um, I think you're using this for the D minor, right? A lot of the time, the minor
yeah,
six chord.
D6. Yeah, D minor six. Yeah.
Minor six chords are really useful. First of all, I'm sure you know this that they're synonyms. No, they're what's the word for that?
Antonyms.
And No, that's the opposite. They're the exact same thing as half diminished chords. Um, Synonyms means they're similar, but what
Yeah.
they're a homonym. That's what it is, a homonym.
Harmony. You're correct.
So anyway, this is D minor 6, but it can also be B half diminished. And not only that, but this chord also can be, let's see, B half diminished, or it can be, what would be the
Major
alt?
seven.
This is, I'm blanking out here for a second.
But you're using the same voice structure, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's what. Okay, this can. Oh, sorry. This could also be C sharp 7 with a flat 9 and a flat 13. If I think about this chord and then I replace the root with a flat 9 and the fifth with a flat 13, I get that exact same set of notes. Maybe in this inversion that's not quite as useful because now I have the flat 9 and a pretty low register. But that could be really useful information though. If I say, okay, I'll take this chord and say this shape could function as E half diminished if I move it to a different place on the neck. And in this case, it's going to be up here. And then if I move it to another place on the neck, it can function as A7. So, I mean, that's a really simplistic thing to do, and maybe the voice using isn't great, but I bet you can think of a way that you could use that the voice leading would be a little bit better.
Coming out of it or staying in the same place?
Maybe if you wanted to try to stay in the same place. So this is your D half diminished, or I'm sorry, your D minor 6, and you're going to this, which is like E half diminished or G minor 6. Is there some other inversion of G minor 6 that you could play that's closer to this voicing?
Keeping the same four strings?
Yeah, for now.
And I'm using this as I'm trying to make this what?
This is your E half diminished chord.
So I'm trying to find 5.
You're just trying to find other inversions of this chord.
In the same place.
Yeah, actually closer to where you started, down here.
Well, okay. So this you have diminished.
There you go. So that one's obvious, right?
Yeah.
But it is literally another inversion of this chord. And then how about the next inversion below this one? It's D, G, B flat, E.
D, G, B flat, E. This is also G minor 6.
Yeah.
I'm finding the E half diminished from here.
Right. And I mean this is literally E half diminished.
Yeah.
They're homonyms. It's G minor 6
Yeah.
and
Substitutes
E
each other, yeah.
Yeah. If I think about it, E is the root, G is the flat third, B flat's the flat fifth, and D is the flat 7. The notes are just mixed up.
You use that when you play Alone Together as a solo guitar arrangement?
Possibly.
Yeah.
And now, remember when we did this first thing? I went from G minor 6 to B flat minor 6, and we were saying this could be like an A7.
A7.
With a flat 9, flat 13. So if I could think of it as either B flat minor 6, or I could also conversely think of it as G half diminished, depending on which one you're more familiar with the different inversions. For me, the half diminished thing is a little bit easier to figure out quickly. But okay, G half diminished. I know I got this one. I got this one. That same shape that we played a minute ago.
But from the
one more fret higher. There you go. So that's, again, this is G half diminished, or you could think of it as B flat minor 6. And then the last one would be down here. This is like D flat, G, B flat, F. Yeah, all the different inversions of whoops of that same chord.
So then,
hmm So you're using that same idea, but now the voice leading is a little bit better, a
yeah, it's
lot
a lot
better.
tighter. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot tighter. So, this.
No, no.
Right?
Yeah, there you go.
I flipped the two fingers.
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Did I
No,
flip them again?
there it is. Yeah.
Only two notes move.
Yeah, that's right. The two inner notes stay the same, don't they?
Yeah, there's only
Yeah,
two that
no
move.
transition.
And I keep, it's like a tongue twister for my fingers because
Yeah,
I want to move the guys that don't
right.
want to move. And then it's just this moves and this moves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. Oh,
And
man.
actually, let's take a second to look at this chord. We've already figured out, okay, this is sort of like G half diminished, or we could think of it as B flat minor 6. But in this case, it's actually functioning as A7, right?
Yeah.
So let's see how all those notes function if it's an A7 chord. So my root is A, which isn't even in the chord, right? It's just, hypothetically here on the low E string. And then
Hypothetical A,
yeah, and then so I've got this note which is D flat, but let's call it C sharp.
C
So
sharp,
that's the third, right? The next note
G.
up is G, which is the flat 7. So the first two notes are like a shell voicing. And then on top of that, I've got B flat, which is a flat 9. And then on top of that, I've got F, which is a flat 13. Or if you prefer to think of it as a sharp 5, but
This is kind of like a little augmented kind of sound.
yeah. So that can make it a little bit more like make sense more if you kind of, I'm like in other words, I'm almost like thinking of maybe this A7 shell voicing and then seeing how the notes sort of relate to that. It's like I'm imagining this chord superimposed on top of that one, or maybe underneath it. And instead of it being some weird foreign shape that somebody
Yeah.
told me it's A7 and I just have to trust it, it's like, oh, okay, I can see that it is
Here's the
A7.
A7 right here. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you have this. This is the one of the common tones right here.
Uh huh.
Here's
Yeah.
The C sharp. You just brought it down an octave.
Right.
So there's that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then another thing that we could do. Let's go to this E half diminished chord for a second. I think this might have been the one you were using before already. One way that we can alter this chord a little bit to just get a little bit of a different color without sort of clashing or ruining the sound of it would be to change the flat third to the fourth.
Flat third
So I'm
to
taking
the.
my G up to A basically. That's Joe Pass 101. He used that voicing a lot. If I move it over to the top strings, maybe you'll recognize the shape, like play EF diminished from the second fret on the top four strings, and then change the G up to an A.
Yeah.
I bet you've used that shape before for different stuff. It could be C13 or, G7 alter or F sharp 7 alter.
That chord I despise because of the bend you have to make on your finger.
Oh, yeah.
So like, I avoid it down like the plague.
I see. Yeah, that's interesting that those all those little things that make us different, even if it's just something silly physical like that, is going to make
Yeah.
you sound a little different from me. Because for
Yeah,
me,
it's
this
called
is comfortable.
The term is affordance.
Mm-hmm.
It's the physical and cognitive contribution you make to the environment. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
how we solve problems. We both
Yeah.
develop guitar because it's what do we bring to the table in terms of our physical attributes and our cognitive attributes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we use it in motor learning for my profession.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's interesting how all this stuff is connected.
yeah. I think that's what's helped me like get back to guitar at a decent level in a 10 month period, 11 month period time. From because I say I took 10 years off, but I picked up the guitar once in a while. I just never played it consistently longer than a week.
Right.
Longer than 3 days. I had a lesson with you a couple of years ago. It was for a solo arrangement of Alone Together. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember we had the lesson and I was all hype. And then when I was done with the lesson, I looked at my wife and I'm like, I'm putting this back in the closet. That was it's too much work, in my head. And that was the problem. I was looking at it as it's work versus this is fun for me. So now it's fun. And now I'm also approaching it from that lens of like from my experience of my other job. And I'm like, oh man, these things all connect because it's just motor learning. That's all it is. And that's how I was able to like get back to where I mean, I'm not fucking awesome, but I'm pretty proficient for fucking,
Yeah.
being back in 11 months,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
all those years you spent in the past were not for nothing. They're still
No.
stored in there in your head, and
Yeah.
even in
Yeah.
your muscle memory and stuff. It takes a while to remember it, but once you remember it, it's not like you're just starting from scratch.
Yeah. My regret is stopping. It's just like, oh man, if I would have never stopped, I'd be an animal right now. I would be disgusting, but that's neither here nor there. But
Right.
this is great. So 2/5. So we're doing this Joe pass voicing as a
Right.
substitute for the E half diminished.
Hmm. I mean, I'm not even necessarily calling it substitution. It's just an adding a different color to the chord.
Okay.
But once again, this can have uh, implications that expand outward from that. So if I think of this chord, which could either be E half diminished, or it could be G minor 6, or it could be uh, F sharp 7 altered. In any one of those situations, I can change this note to that and get a little different color out of it. So if it's E half diminished, if it's G minor 6, it becomes a ninth, right? And if it's F sharp 7 altered, it becomes a sharp 9. Goes from being a flat 9 to being a sharp 9. I'm utilizing my low B string here to play that F sharp on the bottom. Actually, let's go over to this voicing for just a second because this might make it easier to see. Remember I was talking about, oh, the one that you hate, right? But maybe just conceptually think about this chord, and then if I put an F sharp on the bottom of it on the low E string, it turns into like F sharp 7 with a flat 9, flat 13, right? So I'm playing E half diminished with F sharp in the bass.
What I'm trying to figure out is a quicker way for me to be able to like conceptualize. Like, so we said the E half diminished can be G and it can be F. So then any half diminished chord I can use. So the third would be G minor 6. So let's say let's just take it to another key to see if I understand it. Let's use
Okay.
C as an example.
But
So C half. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
one thing I want to, you said F, it should be F sharp.
F sharp. Okay, okay, okay. So it's like okay, so it's a half step down from the third, right? A half step back
Okay.
from the third. So if I took another key, A half diminished. If I'm
Okay.
using A half diminished, then it'll be C minor 6,
Uh-huh.
and it would be. Do I call it B? Do I call it C flat or do I call it just B sharp? B sharp 7? Or would
It'd
it be
be
B7?
it'd be B7 altered.
B7.
Yeah.
B7 altered. Okay, so all right, hold on, one more. Um, I'm trying to pick an easy key that that doesn't have like any crazy notes. So what's uh we already did E for D. We just did C. So how about let's do F sharp half diminished,
Okay.
right? F sharp half diminished. A,
Mm-hmm.
A minor six,
A minor six, right?
and then it would be B. Ah, it would be some kind of fucking B. B A flat.
Yes.
Yeah, A
The way that
flat.
I remember it is, first of all, I think of it from half diminished. That's my starting point. So if this is F sharp half diminished, the first thing I would do is if I want to see what minor six chord this is the same as, just take away the root and what kind of triad do I have? I have an A minor triad. So it's A minor with a six on the bottom. And then the way that I remember which dominant chord, which altered dominant chord this goes with is the root of the half diminished chord up a whole step is the root of the altered dominant chord.
So it's the triad, and then a whole
Hmm.
step. Got it.
Right.
Yeah, because
And
that's seeing it a lot easier.
if I take, and since you don't have the low B string, if I take this F sharp half diminished and move it to the top four strings, and then, and you can do this without barring these notes, just bar your first finger over it and grab a G sharp on the low E string below it. Then you can see how that functions as G sharp minor, G sharp 7 altered. It's pretty easy to visualize from there.
Yeah.
And then move back to this voicing and imagine that if you did have an extra string on the bottom and you were able to reach over and grab that bass note, it'd be the exact same thing.
The exact same shape.
Yeah. Okay. And then so let's go back to our E half diminished example. And we're replacing this, right? So what we said was if it's E half diminished, this becomes the fourth or the 11th. If it's G minor 6, this becomes the ninth.
Nine.
And if it's F sharp 7 altered, it goes from being a flat 9 to being a sharp 9. All of which are really cool color tones to put on any one of those three chords. So what that means is we could go back to that first thing that we did, or this. Remember that one? D
Yeah.
minor 6, E half diminished, which is also G minor 6, and then. So what would happen if we did that little tweak that we did this voicing to each one of these? So first of all, let's start with D minor 6. So the note that would have moved is if it was this voicing of D minor 6, we would have moved the D to an E up here, right? And so here we're going to also move the D to an E.
Yeah.
It's a little weird, right?
Yeah. It's a
It
stretch.
got a color tone on the bottom of the chord, and it creates a minor ninth interval between the E and the F on top. So unless I was going for Ben Mond or Kurt Rosenwinkel vibe, I might avoid this if I was playing, with a Frank Sinatra style singer or something.
Yeah.
But still, I'll keep that in my back pocket in case I ever want like a really mysterious, weird sounding version of D minor 6/9. Now let's try it with this voicing.
Okay, so we gotta move the. Uh, is it?
Remember when we did it up here?
Yeah, I'm trying to find. So
We
we're
moved
moving
G to
the
A.
G up, so the root to the. So this you could just go down a string,
Well, you could, but you're
not moving the G.
yeah,
All
exactly.
right, so man, that's
It's going to
it's a
be a little
move.
bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it's a crazy stretch. It's this.
But it's actually a pretty cool sounding chord.
Beautiful.
So it might be worth the effort.
It's what we
It's up
call a
to you.
private chord.
Yeah.
So,
There's a lot of chord voicings that when I first found them, I was like, I'm never going to play that. It's too hard. And now I play it all the time. Like this one,
yeah.
that
Remember, you
first
gave me a
chord.
tip. You're like, if the chord feels tough, just start doing it higher up the neck,
Yeah.
and then slowly move it back so that it stretches out the hand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I had that. I had the same issue with G minor six from the root.
Mm-hmm.
This I don't know if you the gang
Yeah.
sign chord thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell is this? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a good thing. You would know better than me, but a lot of times, the inspiration that I get from hearing that sound makes it easier to get past the uncomfortableness. I hesitate to say the pain because that immediately sounds like I'm doing something bad, but you
That's
know,
discomfort.
yeah. And I mean, in all honesty, I have had issues with tendonitis over the years, and that's probably part of the reason is I love the way this sounds. I don't care if it hurts. I'm gonna keep doing it.
Well, if I were to ask you, like, how often, how when you were like, how long do you practice?
It really varies these days. I
Well,
anywhere from none to 6 hours.
yeah,
I can't really practice much more than that without really hurting myself anymore.
exactly, exactly. That's all it is. All you had that tendonitis you developed was just an overuse injury, right? It
Yeah.
was just you just hyper specialize in something. You're just gonna. It's a train destined for an accident.
Right.
Yes, not
Exactly.
much you can do. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And
gotcha.
I have learned over the years to recognize when it's starting to become a problem, and then I can go, okay, I gotta step
Yeah,
back
take a
and take
break.
a
Yeah,
break. Yeah. And I think that's a big difference between now and when I was younger. When I was younger, I didn't, I just didn't think about it. It's like,
yeah. I remember you telling me you got a cortisone shot once,
hmm
and that was like the worst mistake you made. You were like, "Ah, that's the worst thing," and I was like, now I look back because I deal with that stuff now on a daily, and every time a patient is like, "Oh, I'm gonna get a cortisone injection," I'm like, "No."
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
So
not a good idea.
yeah,
Okay, so anyway, with all that in mind, you have to
yeah.
weigh those possibilities.
Options. So then it was just that right there. It's really just a rotation of the wrist too that helps you get there.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, you can't because this one you can turn the wrist, you can
Hmm
pronate a little bit, but this one you gotta supinate. You gotta
Yeah,
literally turn the hand to reach. But yeah, it's a dope sounding chord.
and just like you said, even if it's a little bit too much to get to quickly, you could always use it in the higher register. You know. Um,
Yeah.
okay, and then the last one is the one that we're using for A7 altered. This
Right, which
one,
is the F sharp.
yeah, exactly. Well,
So moving.
it's like G minor six or no, G half diminished or B flat minor six.
So we're
And
just trying to move because it's the same. So we still got to move the G to the A, right?
in this case, we're going to move the B flat to a C.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, that's much easier. And it sounds pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So what we have there is an A7 with a sharp 9 and a flat 13 instead of a flat 9. And I can even, if I'm willing to do a bar here, I can even add the root on the bottom and hear what the root sounds like. So if you take nothing away from that little exercise, you say, okay, this is too weird, this one's too hard to play, but this one's super easy and it sounds great. So then the next
You're
time I
still
play
using
it,
that same. You're still using that G minor six. So you went
right? hmm
back to the D minor.
Yeah.
So that second voicing is this one.
Yeah, I just stuck with the original one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ah. Oh no, I did play it right.
Yeah.
And then you said if I can manage the bar.
If you can bar the two middle strings, that saves a finger, and I'm using my ring finger to bar the two middle strings, and then I can yeah, there you go. And if you really want to get a thick chord, if you can flatten out your pinky, then you can add the B flat on the top, and you get a flat nine on the top. You need your middle finger on the low E string. There you go. There it is. Yeah.
Woo!
That's a super thick voicing. It's actually
Yeah.
got 6 notes in it that are all different, and there's only 7 notes in a given scale, so you're playing 6 of the 7 notes in this case on
Yeah.
the altered scale. And in my case, I can even add the 7th note up here, which is the sharp 11. So that's all 7 notes from the altered scale,
That's
which
crazy.
sometimes is too much.
Yeah,
I have to save that for special occasions
yeah.
if I use
The
that all the
weddings and bar
time.
mitzvahs.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so anyway, I hope that's been helpful to see like ways that you can get additional voicings without just having to, okay, I'm going to learn every inversion of every single chord, and after 10 years I'll be able to voice lead better through alone together. Um, there's one other concept too that's really useful. I used to kind of like not like playing over minor tunes. I always felt like I was really limited compared to major. With major, you can twist and turn and do all kinds of crazy stuff with the harmony, and with minor, I always felt like I was boxed into a corner. Because if you play the wrong thing on a minor chord, it just always sounds
It's
bad.
very
So,
obvious. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, and once I sort of discovered that, even interestingly enough, like when I was listening to that old version of Alone Together, the old recording, a lot of the harmonies I'm pretty sure are based off of melodic minor, even though the arranger or composer back then in 1932 probably wasn't thinking of it that way. But in my 21st century way of hearing it, it's like, yeah, that's some melodic minor stuff in there. And I think this kind of came from Bill Evans largely, a lot of this stuff. And what I mean is just taking that 2-5-1, the E half diminished, A7, D minor, we can think of each one of those as being associated with a melodic minor scale. The E half diminished would come from G melodic minor, which is actually easy to remember because remember it's like a G minor 6 chord also.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the A7 comes from B flat melodic minor. So that gives us those alterations of flat 13, flat 9, sharp 11. Everything but the kitchen sink, basically. And then finally the D minor chord. Here was the last piece of the puzzle for me, because I used to always think of the one minor chord as being like minor 7 and being maybe like a Dorian sound or something, or maybe Aeolian, but nothing ever kind of worked perfectly. And then somebody somewhere I heard say, "Oh, I thought you usually use a minor 6 on a minor 1 chord," and I was like, "You do?" And I tried it, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute! I've heard lots of people. That sounds like what I always hear on all those records." You know. And then I realized this could very easily go
Just D melodic minor.
D melodic minor. So all three of those chords could be from 3 different melodic minor scales. Now you could say, well, that's easy for you to say, but how do I, make use of that? I got to learn, instead of just playing over D minor, I got to play over 3 different melodic minor scales. How the hell am I going to remember that? Well, think about the 3 melodic minor scales we're talking about. we got G melodic minor, I'm playing a G. We got B flat melodic minor, I'm playing a B flat, and we got D melodic minor, I'm playing a D. For one thing, I just outlined a G minor triad, G, B flat, D. But even in a more fundamental way, I went up a minor third and then up a major third, or up 3 frets, up 4 frets. And so if I want to think about it like that, I could think, okay, if I can find the melodic minor scale to play over E half diminished, let's say G melodic minor. Say I'm playing that shape on the 2nd fret, the Crimea River lick. Then using that knowledge, up a minor third, and then up a major third. And then I think I put this in my looper before we started. It's very limited, but I'm already getting that sound, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we've talked about that before, because that's kind of a
I think that's improv too.
Probably is, yeah. And
I just forgot my melodic minor scale.
Oh, okay.
So I had to, but I had it on my notes as in my mind of, okay, I got to remember the shapes, because I don't even remember how the fuck to play a melodic minor scale.
That's harmonic minor.
Harmonic minor, right? So melodic minor is going to be.
Da 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 da. No, you want a natural fifth. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5.
2, flat 3.
4, 5, regular 5, and then natural 6, natural 6, natural 7.
Natural 6 it's just F. No, G, A, B, C, D, E. E natural.
Yeah. F sharp. Yeah. And now play a G minor 6 chord.
Oh, that's G minor 6. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. And now play the scale again. Make the second to last note F sharp. Remember.
Sorry. Yeah.
See, hear how those kind of go together like peas and carrots, as Forrest Gump would say.
It's the Zelda thing. All right. Yeah.
So anyway, so you could use that sound over the E half diminished, go, and then over the A7, take it up a minor third, and then up a major third.
Well, that's gonna help the improv for sure.
But okay, I mean that's sort of a side issue. But the reason I'm pointing that out is there's also a little trick that I like to use a lot that has to do with knowing those melodic minor scales. If we harmonize the melodic minor scale, I'm just going to go through this really quickly because I don't necessarily expect you to do this with me. So I'm like I would on a piano, just root for third, fifth, seventh, close voicing, right? And I'm totally diatonic to melodic minor, just like I would with a major scale. If I did like G major, it would go, right?
Yeah.
You get how that works.
The triad harmonic, yeah.
Now I'm going to switch my B to B flat, keep the F sharp, and it'll be G melodic minor. So I get a 1 chord that's minor major 7. The 2 chord is minor 7. 3 chord is B flat augmented major 7. 4 chord is C dominant 7. 5 chord is also a dominant 7, D7. Sixth chord is E half diminished, which is where that playing G melodic minor on an E half diminished chord comes from.
Yeah.
And then the 7 chord is also a half diminished chord, F sharp half diminished. And then I'm back home.
So you took the G major
Hmm.
and you lowered
Yeah, I just lowered one note.
one note, the B, right?
Right. B
So
becomes
G to
B
B
flat.
flat.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
the
I'm gonna put this all on Sound Slice and do like the scale with the chord over the top. Like
right.
you first do your first little triad homework assignment. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Yeah, I'll do that
Okay.
today.
So notice that, I mean, these are kind of weird at the beginning, right? This is a minor major 7, which is kind of exotic. Minor 7, that's weird for there to be a minor 7 chord in a melodic minor scale. Augmented major 7, another weird chord. But once I get past that, the rest of them are kind of easy because it's 4 and 5 are both dominant, and 6 and 7 are both half diminished. And what I figured out is, first of all, I really like the way half diminished chords sound. I think were you in guitar ensemble when we played the Psycho music?
No,
That was
I was
probably
thinking
that was
that's
after you.
yeah, yeah.
But I've always loved the soundtrack from Psycho that Bernard Herrmann wrote. And there's
Okay.
a passage in there where he uses all these half diminished chords, and they're just like different inversions. You hear, like, imagine a string section playing.
Mm.
It's like a really mysterious part of the movie. It's not like the murder scene or anything. It's like maybe they're showing nighttime and the camera's panning over the scene of the
Yeah, yeah.
city
It's
or
like
something.
suspense.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's calm, but there's something not right, and it's sort
Yeah,
of
in the
tension
air.
in the back. Yeah, something is coming. Anyway, so even when I saw that as a kid, I was like, man, that's so cool sounding. And that was sort of the beginning of me really digging that half diminished sound. And so anyway, it occurred to me that since there's two half diminished chords in a melodic minor scale that are a whole step apart, what if I kind of use that to represent the sound of the melodic minor scale? Because I get 8 different notes, right? E, G, B flat, D, and then F sharp, A, C, E. There's one repeated note in those chords, but between the two of them, I get all of the notes from the scale. So what if I took a different voicing of E half diminished and F sharp half diminished, like this? Oh, sorry. Right? E half diminished, F sharp half diminished. That's kind of the whole sound of that scale with 2 chords. And now what if I do other inversions of E half diminished? And pair those with other inversions of F sharp half diminished? It sounds more complicated than it is. All I'm doing is these two, these two, these two, and these two.
Yeah, they repeat.
Yeah, I just did, two
Two,
shapes a
two,
whole step apart, and then the next two
then two
shapes a whole
tape.
step apart, the next two, the next two, and put that all over an E bass note. It sounds really fancy, and I'm not really doing anything that crazy. It's like a harmonized scale, kind of, but without having to
Yeah,
play all 7 different shapes. It's just four
yeah.
different shapes that are played
Repeat.
twice each. Yeah. And then what if I do the same thing with A7? And then the same thing with D. I can get some really fancy stuff, but also, even in a more simple way, let's start with this original voicing that you played for D minor 6. If we're thinking, okay, this comes from D melodic minor, and we already said that this is a homonym for B half diminished. There is the 6th chord in D melodic minor is B half diminished, and remember that the 7 chord is also a half diminished chord a
Half
whole step
diminished.
above. So I can take this shape up 2 frets, and those notes are all diatonic to D melodic minor, right?
I just want to go
All right. Now we're gonna go to the next. Uh, Now let's go to E half diminished, and we know that this could be the 6th chord from G melodic minor, and the 7 chord in G melodic minor is just going to be a whole step above that, so it's going to be. And then when we go to A7 altered, that comes from B melodic minor, which has a G half diminished chord and an A half diminished chord, the 6th and the 7th note of that scale. So I could, like, starting with this original shape, remember when we did this? It's like, okay, I can just move this shape for D minor, G half diminished, A7 altered, but the voice leading is terrible. But what if I added those extra chords in between? The voice leading suddenly isn't quite so terrible.
Yeah. Oh wait,
I'm not even changing the shape. All I'm doing is going D minor 6, E minor 6, G minor 6, A minor 6, B flat minor 6, C minor 6, yeah. And now I'll see what that sounds like over the bass line. I screwed that one up. Let's see if I can use this in a more sophisticated way now. So there what I did is I played E half diminished the regular way, and then using that knowledge, I took it up a whole step. And then when I go to the A7 altered, just bring it up another half step and up a whole step. And then instead of, sticking with this voicing and going up here, I just went to a different voicing of D minor or whatever I could grab that's close by. Maybe that or whatever.
You also have the regular D minor 7 voicing right there on the 12th
Yeah.
fret. That one, yeah.
So any of those. But that's where I started with that was these two voicings, or this one voice. Excuse me. Because I know that voicing like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
And what could be easier than that?
That's pretty cool.
This voicing that you're playing right here, that's A minor 7.
Yeah, I just realized that from this being A. I was like, oops. Yeah. I gotta play this. Right? No, that's E minor 7. D minor 7
Yeah. Anyway, one other thing that I wanted to leave you with is you don't necessarily have to play every note in every chord at the same time or even at all. So I could just take, let's see, what the voicings you were using were. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if I just play? I'm not even going to change anything that my left hand is doing. I'm just going to change what my right hand does a little bit. I don't know if I was completely successful in just sticking with only the notes in those three voicings, but I was trying to. But the point is, another way that you can get a variety of sound is not even about playing more notes in the chord or different notes in the chord. It's just not playing as many notes. So that's a really important way, I think, to get some variety in your comping is to not always be stuck with
The
playing
whole
the whole voicing or four notes in every chord no matter what. And sometimes I'll just like play through a tune and see if I can keep two lines going, you know. I was reading recently an interview with Bill Frisell, and they were asking him about when he studied with Jim Hall. And he said one of the first things that Jim Hall talked about him with is, you know, he had been taking jazz guitar lessons and been studying it and everything. And he said, you know, everything he was doing was all these four note voicings and chords. And that was one of the first things that Jim Hall pointed out to him was you don't always have to play, you know, four notes or five notes or whatever. And you can sometimes get an, a really nice texture by playing fewer notes. And, you know, it doesn't
no,
always
yeah,
have.
that alone sounded fantastic. Like not playing, I just like
Mhm. And
that's
once
gonna take a lot of time, but
Yeah, and once you get accustomed to it a little bit, at first it's a matter of like putting your left hand in the chord shape and then just selectively with your right hand. But eventually you can just kind of picture where the notes are and not have to use all your fingers, and just and then you can be a lot more relaxed and just kind of move more freely because you're not using all your fingers all the time.
yeah, I'm like I'm just trying to look at one this idea.
Yeah, exactly. And you can sort of picture in your head how that relates to the whole chord, but you don't have to keep your hands in that shape.
Yeah, it's definitely something I'm gonna be messing around with now. And then it almost makes your ear hear something, you know,
Mhm.
like another line to try and get back up.
Right, because you're kind of creating melodies. I mean, you're creating melodies when you comp with full chords too, but it's easier to hear the individual melodies when there's just a couple of notes.
Yeah, but now I'm also hearing
Hmm.
because it's in there, right? Because that's gonna take me back to that D minor seven.
Right.
So
Hmm.
yeah, da, do, re, do, da, de, da, do, da, do, de, do, da, do, de, do, da. Yeah, it's cool.
All right, so let's see. We talked about
Now I think it's the improv part.
diminished as. Okay, so I just wrote down the things that we talked about, and we touched briefly on the melodic minor kind of stuff, which that's probably a big part of what I would suggest
To
for
work on.
making for your single note stuff. to
Yeah.
get more colors, because you're, just like with your comping, with your single note improv, your strong points are your tone, your swing feel, your phrasing. You've always been good at that stuff, but it um, there isn't a lot of color in the stuff that you're doing. It kind of, all that stuff, which is the most important part anyway. You've got all that together. But if you want to sort of get to that next level of adding more color and getting more inside the chord changes, it would be a matter of getting some of that melodic minor vocabulary in on the minor parts of the song, the D minor, the F diminished, the A7, and also the D7 chord to G minor in that next part of the song.
Yeah.
And then I guess there's a couple of, and on the bridge you got the two
To
fives and
find. Yeah, you're applying the exact same concept there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really about that. To me, that's a really sort of primary concept when it comes to note choice, to get those more colorful sounds. Um, and then another sort of secondary thing would just be, and this is something that we've already talked about lots of times, is just being able to uh, nail the chord tones of everything. And you're, from what I heard in your single note playing, you're doing that, but there are places where you could do it more. You could outline the chords a little bit in more detail, I guess I would say.
When I went back and listened to the recording, I noticed that I was really missing a lot of times that change. Like when I look back at it now, even like when it's changing to the G minor, getting in here, maybe playing a little,
Mm.
and then for that 2/5,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
for that D major, yeah, or
Yeah, that the a really good spot for that you just noticed is the D7 chord, because that's the first time that something really
different.
different happens. It's like, okay, we're D minor, D minor, D minor, D minor, D minor, D minor, and then, oh, what's different here?
Yeah.
And so if you can out find the notes that really define how that's different from what you heard previously, and there's two of them. There's F sharp and there's E flat.
Yeah.
And then so, that was terrible. Let me try that one more time. It was real easy to hear where the change happened. I wasn't even, and when I was playing over the first part of the tune, I wasn't really even worrying too much about making all those changes. It was just D minor, which is fine. I
Yeah.
may, as a artistic choice, decide to outline all those. But in a way, it kind of makes it more dramatic if I don't outline those, and then when I get to the D
And
sounds,
then
like,
touch on
whoa,
that.
check this out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that little line, that's sort of like a musical DNA. It's kind of a Charlie Parker idea. Da 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 da.
Gotta get better at it, but Yeah. I gotta like work on it, but yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
another big spot is, where it goes to D major. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. I for that I'm just trying to find this part of the melody
Mm,
because it just happens, it's just
yeah.
there. Yeah.
All right, cool. Um, I forget, did you want to do an hour today or 2 hours?
We can do 2 hours and I'll just sell you for it. I might as well get you while I can.
Okay. Um, okay. Yeah, I just wanted
We're
to make
already an
sure.
hour and a half deep, so we
Right.
might as well finish up the last half hour and then.
Okay, cool. I mean, I'm fine with finishing up now. If you just want to pay me for an hour, that's fine. I pretty typically go over an hour anyway. But
Yeah,
my wife is actually the one who made me start charging for 2 hours because I teach students for like 2.5 hours and charge them for an hour.
yeah,
She's like,
no,
you've
no,
got to
you gotta
stop
get
doing
paid.
that.
Yeah, you gotta get paid for your time. Yeah. I'll pay you for 2 hours, Tom.
Okay, cool. Um, okay, so in that case, let's keep going with this melody and single note improv kind of idea. So in addition to down here, maybe find it in a couple of other places. The most obvious second place would be an octave higher.
Yeah.
Hmm. Or try playing the F sharp on the third string, and then it's easier to sort of visualize it almost as a chord. I'm thinking of it as like a D7 flat 9 chord, the third jumping up to the flat 9. Yeah. Not to say that the first way that you played it was bad or anything, but
Yeah, it's easier to see it here though, because it's the
yeah,
same thing.
right.
I keep doing a whole step.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You could also look at going back to the whole chord scale thing. This could be seen as coming from G harmonic minor, which is the more traditional like Bach, that kind of harmony.
I do think of it when I'm there, but I don't always play the G harmonic minor. What I've been playing is B flat major.
Okay. Which is again only one note difference. It's just
Yeah.
F natural versus F sharp. Um, if you really wanted to get detailed about it, you could say play G harmonic minor over the D7 and then go to G natural minor over the G minor chord. But even like if I play, I'm gonna lay down on my looper a D7 to G minor. I'll do a measure of each. So I'll do first what I was talking about. I'll play G harmonic minor over the D7 and G natural minor over the G minor. Now let's see what happens if I just keep playing harmonic minor over the whole thing. Any problems there? Maybe
Not really.
maybe
That
can't-
that
maybe
stood out to
maybe
me.
maybe
Yeah.
Mike Gerber would say
Yeah.
something, but in
Yeah.
terms of the fact is, I mean, now I'll change it a little bit. Well, actually, the voicing I was using for G minor was this, which is G minor 6. I'm gonna lay down another loop. I'm gonna end with a G minor 7 instead of a G minor 6. Now we start to hear a clash because the chord I'm playing had this in it, and I'm playing this, so we hear. That's the only time, the only situation where I'd have to really be careful about harmonic minor on a one minor chord is if the chord player is playing a minor 7 and I'm playing the major 7 and I'm really laying into it. But in a real situation, how much do you really do that anyway?
Um,
So as long as I'm just playing my normal stuff, I'm probably not going to be spending that much time on the F sharps anyway. So the
could
point
you
is, oh,
could
go
you
ahead.
also just go like full melodic minor over the whole thing? Just one melodic minor key, just like a straight G melodic minor over all of it?
Let's see what happens. I didn't really. I mean, it sounds kind of funny for me to just like repeat the same note over and over again. But even then, it wasn't creating any really big clashes because the voicing I was playing for the D7 was this, which doesn't have an E or an E flat in it, so it's kind of neutral, as far as that goes. Now, what if I played? I'll do this. I'll try this one. Did I erase it? Okay. So now I'm playing a flat 9 in the D7 voicing. Now it becomes a little more apparent. Something sounds a little weird, but what if I don't emphasize? So nothing really that stands out that bad. The other thing that I noticed this one time, I heard this recording of John Coltrane. It was one of his older, like from the 50s, like not the crazy modal stuff, but when he was still playing like standards and stuff. But he was in that phase where he was playing lots of notes, and they were playing a really up tempo minor tune, and I noticed that he was playing just the melodic minor scale, just like what I was doing, over like a 2-5-1 in minor, and it sounded great. And I
Yeah.
realized because it was up tempo, there was so little time spent on the different harmonies, the flat 9 on the 5 chord and the flat 5 on the half diminished chord, whatever. You didn't have time to hear any of those clashes, and he was playing fast notes too. So sure, there were clashes happening right and left, but they were going by so quickly that there was no chance that you would hear them as clashes. I was just hearing the bigger picture of the sound of whatever melodic minor scale, C melodic minor, whatever it was that he was playing over, and that impression of C minor that the rhythm section was giving, and they matched perfectly, you know. So I've noticed that, and I do that a lot. Like if I'm playing over a minor tune and it's really fast, there isn't time for me to go, okay, play a scale over this chord, then a different scale over this, playing the melodic minor scale over the home key actually works great most of the time. And sometimes it even sounds better than if you did make all those changes, it might sound kind of too cluttered. Like if you
Yeah, because
program
you're
it
trying to
into a,
make everything and you might miss.
even if you don't miss, even if you play it perfectly, like you program it into a computer, like the perfect solo where it goes through all those different melodic minor scales or whatever, and then you speed the computer up to 300 beats per minute, it's probably going to sound like it's too much.
Hold on, I just realized that this because I'm a real big like shapes guy. Like I don't want to think too much about like notes and stuff. So I was like, man, where the hell? And that's all B flat major because it's here.
Yeah. Yeah, the only difference is the F sharp.
This right here? No.
No, no, the F sharp on the D string, the fourth fret of the D string is your F sharp. Boom. This
Oh yeah,
note.
yeah. And that's we're using that to emphasize that part of the
Right,
D7.
right. And the reason that E flat note is also important. Actually, you tell me. The lick goes right, and you said, okay, well the rest of it's just from the B flat major scale. But why is this note particularly important also in addition to the F sharp? We know that the F sharp is important because it is the third of the D7 chord, and we were hearing an F natural before that in the
Well,
song.
it's a half step away from the root.
It's a half step away from the root of D minor, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But what kind of E were we hearing before this in the song?
Half diminished.
I mean, not the harmony, just what note?
Oh,
What
E natural.
E natural, right?
Yeah.
So the reason that note is almost as important as the F sharp is because it's another one that changes. It's we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
An E flat would probably sound pretty bad over the first part of the song. If I, da, da,
It's like me
da.
singing. It's me singing alone together. Ah, yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, and there, once again, you sort of have it stays on G minor for a bit. You know, da 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 da. Oh, what is it? Um, so I guess it says a bar. I mean, I was thinking it was longer, but it's just one. But it's still it's a little bit of a resting point on G minor.
It's two bars in the bridge.
Right. But in this spot, anyway, what I was gonna say is the same way that we were talking about the playing harmonic minor over the whole thing, and the even if the chord is playing G minor 7, it sounds pretty bad if I really emphasize it. But as long as I don't, that option too of switching to the F natural. Anyway, either one of those works pretty well. It's just basically once I get to the G minor chord, it's more just the G minor tonality. Gary Campbell said something really cool one time. He said when you're in minor keys, pretty much from the root to the fifth is always the same. Like any minor scale always has that sound, except maybe Phrygian that has the flat too, but that sound is common to like all minor sounds. It's how you get from the fifth back up to the octave where you get all the variation. If it's natural minor, if it's harmonic minor, if it's melodic minor, Dorian. There's all those different variations, and it's all from there to there. None of it's all the same here. So minor is, in that sense, minor is minor. It's just if I'm putting notes in between the fifth and the root, wherever the different colors are or choices. Yeah, that lick.
Yeah.
That takes care of all of them. Um, and actually, maybe now that I think about it, that is another thing that I probably could have heard. I hesitate to say it this way because it sounds too jazz education-y, but I could have heard you play more chromaticism. It suddenly sounds
Yeah.
like we're at a jury or something, but that is something that I'm just playing over G minor, but I probably played all 12 notes of the chromatic scale in there somewhere.
Yeah.
That might be something to practice a little bit. Um, I always, because people will ask me like, how did you get that into your playing, the chromatic stuff? And for me, it was there were a few different steps along the way. The first thing that happened to me was when I took improv class at North Texas back in the 80s. It was all about chords and scales. What scale goes with what chord. So they would tell you if you got a 2-5-1 in C, play D Dorian over the D minor, play G Mixolydian over the G7, and play C Ionian over the C major chord. And pretty quickly I was like, well, isn't that just a C major scale over
It's
the
all just C major. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of I didn't really think about that too much. I have noticed that horn players sometimes seem to be more in tune with that concept. I think because they can only play single notes, somehow that influences it. Like, a D Dorian is separate from G Mixolydian, somehow. But anyway, I would be doing that, and it didn't sound like what I heard on records. Just I'm playing. It just sounds like I'm playing scales. I'm not playing any wrong notes or anything, but it sounds really vanilla and not like what I hear Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, Miles, whatever. And I think totally by accident, I was playing over a 2-5-1, and I accidentally played harmonic minor scale over the 2 chord. So let's say I'll lay down a 2-5-1. So I'm playing along with my usual, Now this doesn't sound like Charlie Parker. What's going on? Oh, wait, that sounds cool. Oh, okay. And I remember coming back to school the next semester, that like in the fall, and I went up to my friends and I was like, I've discovered the secret of jazz. You play harmonic minor over the 2 chord, and then switch back to major over the 1 chord. And they were like, yeah, right, whatever, kid. But later on, what I realized I was hearing was chromatic approaches. I was treating it when I was playing over D harmonic minor, I was playing a C sharp approaching the D and a B flat approaching the A.
I've been messing a lot more with the chromatic stuff over like a major key. Like I just relearned Olio the other day, and I was listening back to like me improvising over it, and I threw something in there that was like, and I was like, oh shit, that's pretty jazzy, or even the enclosure stuff. So over a major key, I'm infinitely, like, but putting it in a minor key, I guess, yeah, something I can. I got to work on it.
Yeah, and
But there's some stuff there, though.
yeah, it's one of those things where you can already do it. You're just not in the habit of doing it. And
Yeah, I just gotta
I
like,
always see practice is broken up into two different categories. There's I practice the stuff that I can't do yet, and that, it's like physical. I have to like work. It's like lifting weights or something where I have to work at it and, get better and better and get faster and faster at it or whatever. And then there's the stuff that I notice that I don't ever do this, and it's not because I can't do it. It's just because I'm not in the habit of doing it. And you have to practice that too, but you have to. It's in a way you have to practice that more deliberately. You have to be, you can't let your mind wander because then you'll just go back to the way you're doing it before. You're like, okay, I'm gonna practice playing over a G minor single chord vamp, and I'm gonna force myself to play tons of chromaticism over it. And as soon
yeah,
as I catch myself not doing it, I'm gonna, oh wait, no, no, I got to keep playing a lot of chromaticism.
I think of
And
that part as play.
yeah,
Like I'm very like exploratory. Like when I'm practicing now, back then I used to practice like a machine. I could just sit there for 6 hours, just do the same thing, even if I do it poorly.
hmm
Now I'm like, I break up my practice in like 20, 30-minute chunks. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to work on this tune for 30 minutes. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. I'm working on like an Andrew Renfro, his guitar solo over Black Mona Lisa. I'm trying to learn that. So I put the sound slice and I work on that for 30 minutes. If I get it, I get it. I don't. And then the rest of my practice is just like pick a key. And I'm like, all right, B flat major. We're just going to play with B flat major, and sometimes I record it and I'll just go back and listen to it. But I'm just in, I think B flat and don't think anything else. I just like that. And I'll do that for like 30 minutes. And then I'm just like, all right. And then I'll listen back and see how successful it was. I think I just got to start doing the same shit to minor keys,
yeah,
and that'll help.
yeah. By the way, I meant to ask you what inspired you to buy that guitar.
The Strandberg. So the story is Brian Latour wouldn't sell me my old guitar back. So you remember the Sheridan that I had?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I bought it over Mitch, and then Sandy got upset because Sandy had it for 2 weeks, and then
Okay.
Sandy didn't buy it, and then Mitch was like, "You want to buy it?" And Mitch had took it to that guy in Port St. Lucie to get it all set up and
Oh yeah,
switched up
yeah.
the pickups, and it was like really nice. It was like a souped up Sheraton. So I bought it. I got it, and then my private instructor that semester was Sandy. So Sandy's just kind of like, "Oh, nice guitar there, Brian." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I was gonna buy it," and I was like, "You had it for 2 weeks." He's like, "Well, it was an expensive decision." He was giving me shit about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I had that guitar, and then I got it set up with like 12 gauge, like flat wounds, no half wounds, 12
Mm,
gauge half wounds from Joe, my boss. And then when I was like, I'm not doing guitar anymore, like I'm done, I sold it to Brian.
mm.
So Brian had the guitar for like years. He put it back down to like tens because he's got little dainty hands. And he when I was finally made the decision, like, oh, I want to get back into guitar, I remember calling him and being like, hey man, can I buy my guitar back? And he was like, no. So he flew from Philly to Miami, and one of your old, I think you taught Jose Contreras
Yeah,
that he went to Japan.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Jose had a red Ibanez art core. So he gave me that guitar because Jose gave it to Brian before he left to Japan.
Hmm.
So then I had Jose's guitar. and it was like an Ibanez Arcor. I had to get it set up. I fixed it, and I didn't really like it too much. So then I sold that guitar to buy a nylon string that I have, which is a Cordoba Stage. And I was like, oh, this is a really nice guitar. And then I saw somebody playing a Strandberg Salin NX Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh man, that guitar looks phenomenal. I want to buy that. But then I saw the price and I was like, ooh, can't buy that. So then I saw they were releasing this, and I said, well, this will be a cheaper version of the guitar I want. It doesn't have like the multi-scale neck. It's not semi-hollow body. I think it does have a chambered body. But for the most part, everything is kind of the same. This hardware is different on this guitar than it is on all the other Steinbergs because it's the new iteration of the bridge. Right. So I think all the future models will have this new bridge. And I was like, well, I sold that. I don't have an electric guitar. I have the Schecter C1 Classic, but I actually don't like the neck on that guitar. Like, it's a cool looking guitar, but I don't physically like the neck, so I don't enjoy playing it. It's sentimental to me. My parents bought that. That was like my high school graduation gift. So then I was like looking at the Steinberg guitar. I'd never played one before, and I was just like pulled the trigger in a poor financial decision. You know, I looked at my wife. I'm like, I'm making a bad decision, and I bought it. I got it. And the first one I got, Tom, actually didn't work. So I got it in the mail, and I remember I was like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. And the first thing I did was, but when I went to play this note, it was just like, oh. And I was like, what the hell? And nothing past the 12th to the 17th fret, like, worked. So in my full panic, I call Albert Fortes, the guitar guy, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm refretting a guitar. I go, can I take a guitar to you? And he's like, dude, right now I'm refretting a guitar. I'm like, I'm not asking you, Albert. I've been waiting 3 months for this guitar. It came in, it's not working. I need to know what the hell's going on. So he's like, all right, bring it by. So he checked it. And he was like, all the frets are misleveled from like 12 to 17. They're all like off. And I was like, what the fuck? It's $1,000 guitar. That's unacceptable. Called Steinberg, sent it back to them. And then they replied with, not only were the frets disleveled, the neck was actually cracked. So they're like, it looks like it was mishandled during shipping. So then they resent it to me, and I got it set up with 11s. And now, the other reason why I got it was for this thing right here. And I'm like, this is like my life changer, because playing the guitar like this, you know, I don't know if you know this about me, but I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I wrestle a lot. I actually have my purple belt now. And from getting collar tied and my neck cranked, and I got into a car accident a couple of years ago, I noticed when I started getting back in the guitar, this position is incredibly, like, I'll do it for like 3 hours, but I'm like bothered the whole time. You know, like my thoracic spine bothers me, my neck bothers me, nothing with my hands, but my neck bothers me. So I saw a review where a guy was talking about how this is the most valuable part of a Steinberg guitar. And he's fucking right. My only issue is because I'm such a small guy, I have a hard time finding a strap, because I like to play my guitar here, right. But it's always like, I want the John Stoll. Yeah. You know, he's got that thing like a bow tie. That's how I prefer to play it. And I can't for the life of me find a strap that's short enough. Yeah. Like, no matter where I go, I'm always off by like a little bit. But this on my lap is the most comfortable, lightest instrument I've ever had. Quality wise, I don't think it's flawless for the price point, but I think I'm a convert. I think I've just become like a fanboy, but that's what got me into it. Well, long story short.
Aside from just being curious, I've noticed that your sound is really good with that guitar.
So what's crazy is that I rolled back the tone, because the pickups are actually fucking super bright. They're like really bright. Like, so and now all of a sudden, Hiroshi pointed that out to me, because I was playing with Hiroshi, and he's like, man, that fucking guitar is bright. I'm like, yeah, it's driving me fucking crazy. And then he was like, just fucking roll the tone off. And I was like, I rolled the tone off, and I was like, fuck, this sounds great. And it's also really, well, that's me, I think, because I'm too heavy-handed. So it's like very snappy, but I kind of like it now. Brian brought that up to me when he heard me play, and he's like, "Man, I really like how snappy that guitar is." And I'm like, "It's snappy because I'm over picking."
Hmm. Does
Benelli, go
that
ahead.
guitar have stainless steel frets?
It does.
That
It
makes a little
does.
bit of a difference too. That'll give you a brighter sound.
Ah, I
Th-
see.
This
Because
guitar has stainless steel frets and really bright pickups too. And same thing, I end up having to roll the tone knob completely off to get a warm sound. Otherwise, it's like, you know,
oh
it's
yeah,
super bright.
but that guitar was custom made for you, though, right?
Yeah, but the pickups, it wasn't like I was there when they were winding the pickups and it was made exactly. I just got whatever pickups he normally put in guitars, and they're
Are those
active.
Fishmans?
What's that?
Are those Fishman active pickups?
No, they're Seymour Duncans,
Oh
but
shit.
they are. I don't know. I've heard conflicting things from different guitar repair people. One person told me these are actually active pickups, and then somebody else said it's not that the pickups are active, is that they're going through active circuitry. Because I also have piezo bridge pickups, and that is an active, you have to have a battery to power it. And apparently, even though these pickups are probably not active, they're going into that circuit. So when the battery dies, the guitar completely goes dead. It's not like I can still use these pickups. And I think that does have some influence on the sound. It kind of makes it brighter. But these pickups, I noticed later on that Seymour Duncan makes these pickups called blackouts that are designed for heavy metal, and they're super bright pickups. So I suspect that either these are those pickups or there's something very similar to
Very
that.
soon, they're the predecessor to that
Yeah,
pickup.
exactly.
But yeah, the one thing I remember when I was younger, Benelli during one of my forums, because I used to play on 10 gauge strings, but I get too into it. And Benelli was like, "Hey, you're playing so that you're getting that snap." He's like, "You
Right.
should just go up a gauge." So
Hmm.
I for the longest time, I played a full set of tens with an 11 gauge string, but that was a pain in the ass. So then I just went up to 11s, and then it became a slippery slope to where I think I got all the way to like 13 gauge
Mm.
half wounds because flat wounds were always too dead to me. Half
Yeah.
wounds was kind of in the middle, and that was fine. Now I find myself sometimes getting to that same. It happens to me every now and then where I'll overpick it, but I'm like, I'm not gigging. I'm not getting judged too much. Like I should be okay. Like I just gotta remember to tone down the right hand a little bit. Um, and but overall, like the instrument is just like it's buttery. Like I wish I could like have you touch it and you'd be like, damn, this is actually set up really good out of the box. Like it's very, very, very good. The other thing too is a thing you had me do, which I don't think you ever expected me to take it as far as I did, and I don't even know if you remember it. But you were telling me because obviously I'd only been playing guitar a year, and you were like my second ever guitar teacher. You were telling me about intonating notes that always be close to the fret, right? Get as close to the fret as possible. And then you taught me this, where you were like, there's a distinct difference between, and I always had that tendency. And you were like, Brian, you're pressing the note way harder than you need to. And
Mm.
you gave me this exercise where you're like, look, just go and just until you find the note. And I don't think you realized that I would go a whole summer and just go, which I think is why I have good left hand technique overall. Like everybody says, oh shit, you got a solid left hand. And it's because I took what you told me like to the autism extreme. I was doing that the whole summer.
Right.
And now I just have the right left hand touch, but I've never really gotten, not that it's bad, it's just heavy, like I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. I don't think your left hand or your right hand is heavy to the point of it being counterproductive. That's
yeah,
just
not anymore.
I mean, your personality is like that too. You're kind of
Yeah,
an in-your-face person, and so your right hand sounds like that,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
good. You
yeah, it's
shouldn't
exactly
like
what it is.
try to be somebody that you're not, whether you're as a person or in your playing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think playing is definitely the truest expression of yourself. All right, this is actually great. I know we're at 2 hours deep and you probably got other things to do. We'll just one of these days. I still have a lot to go with this.
Mhm.
The one quick question I have
Right.
is over the C sharp C sharp Aeolian like vamp. The voicing you're using is
This is the voicing I'm using. Yeah, that's a little different from the
yeah,
one
it's
you're
not like
playing.
okay. Yeah.
Basically,
Okay. So
all it is I took a C sharp minor 7 chord and I moved this note, the G sharp, up to an A. And
I'm
then
using that voicing in the beginning, kind of.
mhm, right.
Uh, I'm still having a hard time with the song. I like I said, I bit off more than I can chew with that. I got to work on that some more. But my question is, when I hear the improv start on the recording, I know the line that you play into the back that goes into the improv, right? That's like the line you play right into Dave Fernandez, right?
Mhm.
Dave Fernandez's like opening line. But I cannot stop thinking about how you sometimes come into an improv distortion and just like you play like this ripping line into it. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell is that ripping line. And I can't get anything close to it because I'll play the recording and I try and jam with it. And the closest I've gotten is like the John Stoll, like that 212, like pentatonic, like line. But I'm like, fuck, it's not Tom enough. And I'm trying to figure out what would be like the thing you would do. And I'm like, what is it?
Well, I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but there is a lick that I do like to use sometimes. That it sounds kind of like Michael Brecker to me. That's what it makes. That I'm trying to get that sound where he'd be like,
Your inner Brecker.
you know,
Yeah, yeah, it's like a
and it just
run.
yeah, and it just like knocks your head off at the beginning of the solo. Is
Yeah,
so it's just a augmented major 7 arpeggio.
that's
Is
the
that it?
thing. Yeah,
Now, one thing I should warn you about is I am making use of the extra strings on that. So part of
yeah,
what makes it sound like that is it's such a big range.
yeah, because you have the bottom.
Right. Whoops. So, but the pattern is 2 notes per string, and if you wanted to translate it to 6 string, maybe let's try G augmented major 7. So I'm going to start with F sharp and G on the low E string, right? And then so that's the 7th and the root, and then on the A string, I'm going to play the 3rd and the sharp 5th, which is B and D sharp.
B and B sharp,
Uh-huh. And then you just repeat that shape on the next 2 strings,
starting from the
starting from the F sharp.
starting
So
from
start.
the F sharp.
Mhm.
So it's
Right. Uh-huh. And then go to the top 2 strings. That's it.
E flat.
E flat, yeah. So that's it.
Oh my god! But you blister. You play that like blistering. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean,
All
you
right.
can do the same thing with a regular major 7. And there at the end, I was shifting up to the 7th again.
Yeah, you make really good use. You've always made good use of the guitar, like multi-directionally. Like you've always made good use of the guitar horizontally and vertically. And I tend to like a lot of like anytime I arpeggiate something, I'm always thinking. I think think a lot this, and I got to do a better job of seeing where the connections are, like this way on the guitar, because I'm very content to just be
Right.
hammer home in like one or two shapes. You know, I don't really go too far. But this will help.
Yeah. Yeah, mess around with that a little bit. See what
Yeah,
other ideas you can come up with using that same concept.
I definitely will. Tom, thank you so much for taking the time. Zell you or Cash
Yeah.
App?
Yeah, Zelle is perfect.
All right, cool. And then
I've
it's
got Zelle and I've got Venmo.
okay. I'll Zell you from my business, and then is it 75 an hour?
No, it's 60 for an hour, 100 for 2 hours.
Okay, I'll send you 100 for the 2 hours.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks a lot, Tom. I really appreciate you. This was great. I mean, it's a lot. So you'll send me the link then so I can download it,
Yeah, yeah.
and then I will find like a little chunk. I